I think we got some people still showing up, but I think we're 2:02. This is going to be a pretty quick one, I think. It's a fun thing to be able to just like throw together when you get home, which is nice. If you have a Cuisinart or a Roku, this is going to be incredibly useful. You can't really do this in a blender. Um, yes, you could do it by like chopping it, but that would take too much time. If you, this is really definitely a meal that is designed for a food processor. So if you got a food processor, if you have a food processor, that's great. Um, but otherwise, maybe borrow one, or you could always buy ground chicken. Um, it's usually pretty fine, and just sort of like mash it up with your spoon, but it's just not going to be quite as good as doing this because we really want it to be a paste. It's I did a test batch of this, and I couldn't even. It was amazing. The dumplings were so perfect. Anyways, very excited to show you guys all today. I think without any further ado, we're gonna get it rocking. Hi everybody at Edgartown Library. Thanks for coming in. Hi everybody at home. Thanks for zooming in. We will record this. We'll get it tapped in there on our YouTube where all of our other ones go. So that anybody who'd missed this will still get a chance to check it out, continue the legacy. So without much delay, I'm going to jump right on in. Please do make sure to mute yourselves. Those of you who said hi to me, I do appreciate it. All right, we're going to jump in. So as per usual, I have everything in its place. My mise en place is where it needs to be. So as you can see, I've got my pot over here. I'm going to be cooking in. I've got a lid.
Chris, sorry, I'm just gonna make one more announcement.
Oh
As
yeah.
far as yeah, as far as the handouts for the recipe, I'm gonna email those to everybody who's attended after the program has ended. And for those who are attending in person or just want a paper copy, I'm also gonna have them at the front desk in the library, so you can pick those up whenever you'd like to.
It's a
Thank you,
def
Chris.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely a good recipe to have in your back pocket. And I'll tell you, if you do want to do it more classic style with chicken in the soup, I'll let you know the substitution. I did a bunch of research and I ended up making one substitution and it worked perfectly, and I couldn't be happier. So, but I'll talk about that when we're in the recipe. So, mise en place. So I got my pot. I've got my lid, which is very important for this. The dumplings want to kind of steam at the top of the liquid, so we're going to want to use that for sure. Over here, I've got all my ingredients. It's always best to have it right in front of you so you don't have to go anywhere. And then I've got my food processor I showed you guys already. So we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to get started here with just some veggies. I like to add a little bit of chopped veggies in there just for some extra roughage, a little bit extra flavor. The classic that I would probably use would be carrots, celery, and onion. But today I've got some celeriac, carrot, some parsnip, and an onion. So, and a little bit of garlic, just because garlic's always good when you're feeling sick. So, we're just going to start getting that all together here. We're going to dice it up nice and small. And once it's diced up, we're going to cook it in the pan. We're going to just try and get some flavor on it, some nice browning. Really try and brown the onions more than anything else and soften up those carrots so we don't have to boil them too long. You can just throw it all in the pot and then put your broth in there. There's no problem. Just let it all boil. It's just not going to be quite as deep, the flavor. And so here we're going to go for a little bit more depth and get a nice sort of browning. Whoop. Get some caramelization. It's going to help make the soup go a lot longer. And this step's particularly important for me and my sort of current way of eating, just because I use a lot less salt than I ever did before, especially with a brothy soup like this. Salt is usually a big carrier. It really sort of makes it taste more savory and more fulfilling. But for this, we're going to create that flavor by browning our vegetables and cooking them beforehand, getting some nice caramelization of those sugars. That's going to help us sort of forget the fact that there's not going to be very much salt in the soup. But now, you, of course, at home are welcome to put as much salt in the soup as you want. You can put anything you like as accoutrement. It's a pretty basic broth soup. I just got back from Mexico, and they have a soup there called sopa de lima. It's just literally lime soup. It's usually a chicken broth made from a sort of boiled chicken. You simmer the chicken, use the meat for tacos and such, and then you take the broth and you just put a whole bunch of lime juice and salt in there. and pretty much call it a day. I actually think that a lot of times it's not lime that they use. They use sour orange. It's very similar to lime. It kind of looks like a green orange, but it's very, very sour and delicious. Really, really good in the soup. And it's just like, it's a very sort of acidic soup. And the reason I mention that is that I think a really good sort of accoutrement to this soup, I wouldn't do it in like a normal chicken and dumpling because a normal chicken and dumpling is kind of thick already. But for this soup, because it's very thin and brothy, because the chicken is and the sort of thickener is in the dumpling, I think that lime really kind of helps elevate it. It really tastes kind of nice. It almost gives me like a tortilla soup vibe. In fact, if you wanted to, there's nothing stopping you from sort of seasoning the dumplings or the soup, with a little bit of paprika and cumin, and almost maybe making this into like a tortilla soup dumpling kind of thing. But that's the beauty of any recipe. You can always just experiment, do whatever you like. Take things, add things, take them out. For instance, right now I'm not using celery, onions, and carrot. I'm using carrot, parsnip, onion, and celeriac, which is, in case you've never seen it before, it's celery root. It's really nice. It actually kind of smells and tastes a lot like celery. It's deeper though, more earthy. It's got a lot more sugar in it than celery. So it's going to kind of change our profile a little bit, but it's going to hit sort of home. And I just got that from my CSA, so I figured I'd give it a use. Why not? So let's get jumping. I'm going to do onions and garlic first, and I'll just sort of show you how I'm cutting these. So I always like to top and bottom them and cut them right in half. We do a lot of cutting things on the show, and it's always nice to sort of have that extra backup of how to get things cut as fast as possible. And so the reason I do it like that is I'm not trying to do a very fine dice. If I was trying to do a very fine dice on this, I'd leave the root end on. That would keep, you can actually see there's still a little bit of root there. That keeps this whole thing together so that I can chop, 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 and it's still all going to hold together, and then I can dice it. But I'm not really too concerned about getting super small here. So I'm just going to kind of go the long way, sort of follow the lines of the onion there, and just make a decently small dice. It doesn't have to be crazy. We just want something that is going to be smaller than a mouthful. We really don't want to have to. These vegetables are more for sort of flavor and a little bit of texture, but we don't want to have to chew them really. The main thing in the soup is going to be the dumplings. We want the dumplings floating to the top. We want all this vegetable matter sort of at the bottom as like as a nice sort of addition to the flavor, but also just to give it a little bit more hearty bite. We want people, who are eating it to think, oh, okay, I got a whole meal. I didn't just eat, dumplings. And this is going to really help sort of bring that feeling home. And also just be tasty because, let's be honest, onions and garlic and carrots are absolutely great. And I'm using the whole bulb of garlic because I love garlic, and I'm not cutting it very small. If anything in this, I like to have big. It's the garlic. Usually when I'm sick, I'll make just like a miso soup out of just large pieces of garlic, a couple chunks of carrot, and some onion. You sort of just like simmer that in water until the veggies are cooked, and then you just plop your miso paste in there. And that's a really good one. So I like big chunks of garlic when I'm feeling sick. It always kind of makes me feel better when I get a little piece in soup. So there's our onions and garlic. We're going to start with those just because they, while they're not the hardest, they don't take as long to cook. They do survive cooking a lot better than other vegetables. So we want to get them in there first so they have time to brown. And they're not really going to break down if they cook too long. Carrots and parsnips, if you cook them too long, they kind of turn to mush. Onions also do that, but we're okay with onions turning to mush. They're not there for texture. They're there 100% for flavor. And the longer they cook, the better that flavor is going to become. So that's usually why I start with garlic and onions, even though they don't take longer to cook. Carrots would be the other option if you, again, weren't super sold on caramelizing those onions. And we're not going to like caramelize them like really slow and low. We're just going to get some browning, a little bit of extra flavor just to make things work. And so I just topped and bottom those carrots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them in half here. And then I'm going to, I'll show you, I'll cut them into carrot sticks. And then from there, we can dice them. I'll show you that sort of whole process in a bit. And then the celeriac looks kind of like a crazy alien, but we're just going to top and bottom that like pretty much any other root. I treat it a lot like turnip. And then I'm just going to come around the outside with my knife and peel off all of that skin. You can do this with a peeler as well. But I always just like want to use as little dishes as possible, especially right now. So I'm just gonna keep using my one knife. And what you want to do, I don't know if you can see it very well there, is you're kind of like making a little curve with your cut. See how that's not straight? You're sort of starting at the top here, and then you're sort of cutting. Here, let's turn it. You're cutting around, and you turn your knife as you go. And here, maybe if I can get it like this, you guys can see a little better. And that gives a nice little sort of shape here, but it also gets the peel off everything in just a couple strikes. So great, so that's good to go. Now we're just gonna, generally when you're trying to do a small dice, you want to make pieces that are easy to work with. And so planks and sticks are sort of the way that I remember that process. So my pan's nice and hot here. I'm just gonna go ahead and put some oil in there, get my onions and garlic going. Oh yeah. You ever want to make somebody think you know what you're doing in the kitchen? Just get some oil hot, put onions and garlic in there, and just wait. Somebody's gonna come out of the recesses of your house and be like, "Oh man, that smells so good! You must be cooking something tasty." It's just onions and garlic, but sometimes that's all you need. Right? That's nice and hot. I'm just gonna let those sweat a little bit. So planks and sticks. So we've got plank. This is a plank. Anytime you can get something as a plank, that's really nice, mainly because it sits flat on your cutting board. It's very safe as well. If you get a whole bunch of planks, you can stack them up like this and cut them all at once, which makes time go a little bit faster as well, which is quite nice. So we're going to take these planks, and then I usually want to do my sticks as long as possible. So I'll pick the longest way, and then I'll cut those planks into sticks. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just cooking at home here. If I was in a restaurant, I would square these up. I wouldn't use any of the sort of strange little bits that are kind of pointy like that. I'd only want, nice square sticks like that, just because it looks better. I always hated that kind of wasteful experience. A lot of times, it's less wasteful because you're using it for like staff meal or something, but it's just not my jam, not my vibe. So I always use all the pieces, even this little guy right here. Um, and so I have sticks now. I'm now turning them. So I'm going to cut those sticks another way. And those sticks will soon become a dice. And you don't have to do big piles like this. I just have big hands. So I usually like to do that. You can see I've got my thumb is sort of in danger's way, but I've got my thumb sort of curled back. So if I did hit anything, I'd hit the top of that knuckle. Probably wouldn't do very much damage. And I'm just going slow. I'm not trying to rush this. I'm not trying to slap the board and dice as fast as I can. I'm just cooking at home. I'm taking my time and cutting these. I'm getting it's speedy because I am doing them all at once. I've got a nice big stack, so I can go a little bit slower, or to be a little bit slower. And that dice is a little too big, to be honest. This is not exactly what we want. This is probably a little bit closer, just to give you an idea of sort of the difference. This one in the back here is better. These other two are a little bit too big, but that's fine. It's going to cook down. It's going to get tasty. These onions are already starting to turn translucent and their color is changing a little bit. That's great. Hayes have a nice hot pan for that. Just going to crank that back up again, and we're going to jump right into our parsnips. We're just dicing, just having some fun, dicing different veggies. So the parsnips are very pointy. These are actually from my in-laws' garden. They've been sitting in our fridge for like 2 months or something like that. That's a root veggie if I've ever seen one. And so we're just going to cut these thin parts off because I'm going to cut them differently. So those I'm going to sort of quarter. I'm just going to cut them very long and then turn them and cut them long again. Again, we're doing sticks here. So there's my sticks. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. So there's my sticks. And then this piece is nice and chunky. So I'm going to plank this first, and then we're going to go to sticks. Onions and garlic smelling so good. All right, so planks. Now, if you are worried about your knife skill, just cut a little piece off of this and make a little flat piece. You can put that down on the board, and it's going to be a lot more stable for you, easier to cut. If you feel comfy with a knife, you don't have to worry about that. Or if you have a parsnip like this one that already kind of is flat, you don't have to worry about that. But now that that's nice and flat, I can really put my pressure on this without worrying about it slipping and cut some really nice planks. Again, and then from there, planks to sticks. Parsnips are always fun. You cut them and they like curl up. Like they live under pressure. They just are constantly trying to escape the bonds of their skin and the fiber of their bodies. Every time I cut them, they like curl up and just go crazy. All right, so this one's already kind of flat, so I'm just going to go ahead and plank this one off right now. Whoop. There we go. It's got a little off course there. It's not much of a plank. Basically just shaved the piece off. So again, planks and sticks. We just line them all up. And parsnips smell amazing. Um, they're like they're just like the most fragrant carrot you've ever had. All right, these onions are looking pretty nice. Just gonna kind of show you. We're not super caramelized, but the celery I'm putting there has a decent amount of sugar as well, so it's actually gonna help with this process. I'm just gonna show you a little bit what we're looking at here. You know, a little bit of brown, nice coloration in there. Nothing too crazy. And then celery going in. Ooh. I probably have too much veggies here, to be honest. I don't really know anything about restraint when it comes to vegetables. I'm even trying to cook like a smaller batch right now because I only have half a pound of chicken, not a full pound. But it's just what it is. It's going to be nice and chunky, and I'm not going to be sad about it later, that's for sure. So again, just kind of holding this whole thing, trying to keep my fingers out of the way as much as possible. Nice slow chops. Get yourself some nice little chunks here. And you know, it's not going to make anything perfect. Again, if I really wanted something perfect, if I was trying to impress somebody, I would square these off, and I'd do much smaller piles so I could make sure every single piece was the exact same size. And that way, when they look at this, they'd be like, "Wow, you really know how to cook, and it's beautiful." You know, there's this old video game I used to play, and part of the video game was like you'd have to cook when you rested. You'd like go be out on the road, and you'd have to cook as when you rested. And everybody always got judged. Like the other party members would be like, "Oh, your food is so good," and you get like a bonus, or it'd be like, "Oh, your food is so horrible. You know, how is this possible?" And the main character always just cracked me up because his food, no matter what, everyone would always be like, "Wow, your food is delicious. It's amazing." But he got horrible reviews for how his food looked. And there was like this one cutscene that they had where everybody in the party's like, "We don't know how you do it. You know, your food is always so amazing, but oh my god, it's so ugly." And sometimes when I'm just like messing around at home, I think about that. Curry especially. I kind of love when it has like big chunks that like don't make sense. You know, you've got like a nice small sweet potato that's perfectly cooked, and then like a bigger one that like maybe is like a little bit more al dente, and it kind of gives you some texture. It gives you some different experiences with your mouth. So don't ever be scared about what your food looks like because there's this guy in a video game out there that cooks the best food on the planet and it looks horrible. So so don't ever judge yourself. I can't remember what his name is. The game was Tales of Symphonia on GameCube. It's really good. It's actually a big series. If any of you guys play games or have grandkids that do or kids that do, the Tales series has been going on for a very long time, ever since like Super Nintendo. Really fun game. Very unique sort of battle style, and you get to cook for yourself, which is always kind of like a like sim as well. It really kind of brings it home, makes you feel attached to the characters. You know, it's really more of a story game than anything else. Um, Anyways, my little aside there as I chop veggies. These actually are pretty good. I think my carrots I'm very proud of. Those are like a perfect little dice. So we're gonna crank this heat. We're gonna put all the veggies in here. We're gonna start softening them up. And while those are going, we are going to get our dumpling dough ready. Sweet. Yeah, I put way too much veggies in here. Oh well. I'm gonna put the broth in and probably have to water it down a little bit just to make sure I have room for my dumplings. But that's okay. That was probably enough veggies for like my full recipe, like if I had done my 2 quart. But I do have a little extra broth here, so I think it'll be okay. I got some turkey broth from Thanksgiving that's been in the freezer. So that's pretty excited, very happy about that. All right, so dumpling dough. So again, we're going to cut this recipe because I only have half a pound of chicken. So normally I'd have a pound of chicken, so I'd use 2 cups of flour, but with half a pound of chicken, I'm just going to use 1 cup of flour. And so that's not a problem. I'm just going to put it in a bowl here. Here we go, your way. I'm just going to put it in a bowl here. It's a little short of a cup, just to put a little extra in there. And the reason I'm putting it into bowls is because we're going to put our leavening in here. We don't want the leavening to get wet before it's time. And so we're going to put all the dry into one bowl. We're going to get our wet in the food processor and blend it up. And then while the food processor is running, I'm gonna put the dry in. So it's going to be, instead of 4 teaspoons, it's going to be 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So again, normal recipe would be 4 teaspoons. Baking powder is going to make our dumplings rise. I've seen some recipes that had baking soda in there as well. If you're doing like buttermilk or anything that's very acidic in here, I would put a little bit of baking soda in here as well, just to help counteract that. But we're not doing that. In fact, we're doing probably a pretty laid back. It's not very acidic at all. You know, if anything, it's going to be less acidic because we might put some milk in there. So we don't have to worry really about that. But if you are using buttermilk for whatever reason, if you like it, really nothing wrong with that. Just put a little bit of baking soda in here. I'd say if you're using about a quarter cup of buttermilk, put maybe like a half teaspoon, maybe not even that much, just a little bit to make sure that that our rise agent isn't counteracted by the acid. So the veggies are looking good. Gonna hit them with a little bit more oil. Perfect. Put some black pepper in there. You can season the soup however you like. Tonight I'm probably going to use a little bit of Italian herbs just because that's what I got on hand. But any herbs would work, or no herbs. Like I said, we could make it more of like a tortilla soup vibe if we wanted to. Put some cumin and paprika in there. But yeah, you really can't go wrong. Put what you like in there, and same for veggies. Like, if we were doing like that sort of tortilla soup, maybe I'd put some jalapenos, want more onions, do more of the sort of trinity with peppers, onion, and celery, than the mirepoix. It's just really kind of what you want, and then a little bit of sugar. So every time I looked up recipes for this, people had sugar in there. It's only a teaspoon. There's really no reason for it, in my opinion, because we're not feeding anything. Normally, you'd put sugar in a dough like this because it's rising, and you want to feed the yeast. But we're not feeding yeast, so the sugar is really in there just to kind of make it taste a little bit better. And I have found, with my sort of more low salt style, that I do kind of use sugar in the place of salt sometimes to sort of make food pop a little bit. But it's just a teaspoon. It's not going to be too crazy. If you have problems with sugar, just don't put it in. It's not going to hurt anything. But I literally every recipe I saw had sugar in it, so we have put sugar in here. Great. So that's going. I'm just going to get my butter melted. So it's going to be 2 tablespoons for me, but normally the recipe would be 4 tablespoons. That's half a stick. And you do want to melt this butter. So I'm just going to pop it in the microwave for myself. And it's okay if it's a little warm. It does not have to be super cool. We're going to sort of drizzle it in the chicken, and that's going to be actually a-okay. So I'm going to pop this butter back in the fridge. Otherwise, my cat will come and lick it, and you guys will all be like, your cat is licking the butter. All right. The veggies are looking good. Starting to get a little brown on the bottom, making a fond. That's what you want. You want a little bit of flavor to stick to the bottom of the pan. That is going to sort of scrape up when we're done. That fond is like a classic soup technique. You always want to try and develop that while you're cooking your vegetables, and then you put your broth or your liquid in there, or your wet veggies. Sometimes like onions can be very moist, and that'll sort of dissolve that fond. That fond is usually just caramelized sugars, which are very easily dissolvable in water or anything water like, and that flavor follows with you into the future. Beautiful. So we're going to jump over here. I'm going to try and make this so you guys can see what I'm doing. Let me just move stuff around here real quick. This is, of course, going to be so very loud, but that's okay. Just close your ears. Let's see if this works. Let's see. How's that look? Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, great. Cool. So in the background, I'm just cooking my veggies right now. I'm actually gonna pop that broth in right now. So I've got my I'm actually probably using a little more than I need to. I've got a quart and a little bit. But again, I use a lot of veggies, and so that's really kind of just going to help me counteract that. This is good turkey broth that I made from my old turkey carcass. So it's got all sorts of good flavors in there. It's got whatever was left over in the carcass, and so we're just going to bring that to a boil right now. Get that boyo rocking. This up to maximum speed. That looks great. I'm just gonna scrape the bottom a little bit here. Okay, perfect. Sweet. So chicken. I've got a half pound of chicken. Turns out it's about one breast. I'm just gonna cut this into pretty rough chunks. Doesn't need to be anything crazy because we are just gonna blend it here in our food processor. Pop that in the food processor. Okay. We're just gonna sort of pulse this here until it starts to sort of form a little bit of a paste. And then we're gonna just scrape down the sides. I'll sort of show you as we go what the process looks like. So just be careful. It's gonna be a little loud. Hopefully it's not too loud in the program room. Whoops, not. So pretty quickly, it's gonna form a little ball. You guys will see it sort of forms a little ball, which is exactly what we want. That's great. It's still a little bit too chunky. If you kind of look at this, it's starting to get really pasty. It's doing what we want. It's starting to stick together. This would be a good place to stop if you were making like meatballs or something like that. But we're not doing that. We're making dumplings. So we don't want to have any chunks at all. We want it to be super pasty. So we're just going to scrape this down a little bit and we're just going to let this go. It's probably going to be maybe a minute or so. One sec. Here we go. That was probably like 30 seconds, but you can see now the texture has sort of changed. It's a little bit more smooth. It's almost like a spread. You could do all sorts of crazy stuff with this, but this is essentially what's in chicken nuggets. You just take a bunch of chicken, you blend it until it turns into a homogeneous paste, and you can do basically anything with it. And you can't even tell. But this is very nice. Really love this just as like a general sort of piece of sort of culinary to use. You could take this and just sort of slather it, like take like a flat top, something really hot, and just sort of take this some nice grease and just sort of slather it on there. You make like a little chicken patty. You can do a lot of fun stuff with this, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some butter in there, and we're gonna get a little bit like more liquid. Need a little more time with my butter there. And then that's gonna be our liquid, and we're gonna add our flour in there. Now, my recipe that I have calls for milk. It calls for up to a quarter cup of milk, depending on how this is going to look. So we're going to add everything in there first, and we're going to take a look at it. We're going to see if it's going to be a good dough for us. You can put the milk in there, just go for it. It's not going to hurt anything. Even a soft dough with these is going to hold together because there's so much protein in there from the chicken. But I personally prefer a little bit more of like a solid dumpling. And so I usually skip the milk. But it's important to have because it's a chance that it's just going to be a dry dumpling. It's not going to really turn into a dumpling dough. It's going to turn into more like a crumble, and you will need the milk in that situation. That just depends on how much moisture is in your chicken. If you got like a really nice chicken from your backyard, maybe that probably hasn't been brined like a commercial chicken has, that might be a little bit drier. You might need that milk. But if you're using a commercial chicken, it's almost guaranteedly brined, which means there's probably some water weight added to it, and that should be a-okay. It's kind of what we want for this recipe. All right, cool. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna turn this on, and while it's on, we're gonna stream that butter in there. It's just gonna take a couple seconds, and that's gonna help incorporate it nice and evenly. So here we're gonna do that. All right, so our chicken has sort of changed texture yet again. That little bit of moisture has really sort of smoothed it out even more. It's a little shiny now. I can tell just by looking at this that this is a little bit drier than in the past. So I'm gonna just toss a little bit of milk in there. Where's my little cup? Let's use this. Let's just get this back on there and going. Okay, good. That's what we're looking for. Okay, and that was maybe, what is that? That's 2 ounces. That's a 2 ounce scoop. So that was 2 ounces of milk. And what happened is the chicken kind of changed color now. It's like a whiter color. I'll show you, and it's even more pasty than before. And it almost looks kind of wet. It looks kind of like a cheese spread, maybe. I don't know. You guys can see it there. Maybe not quite as well as I can see in person, but it's wetter. It changed color. It's whiter. That's what we're looking for. That's how we know that it is ready for its flour. It's looking to be a very good texture. So we're gonna go do it the same thing. We're gonna turn this back on. While it's on, we're gonna pop the flour in there. I'm gonna scrape the sides and the top first because it's gonna be harder to sort of get everything incorporated once it turns into a dough. So as much sort of scraping and sort of togetherness you can do right now is going to be helpful for later to make sure we use this all. All right, let's go. Here we go. All right, that looks pretty good. I am going to hit it with just a little bit more milk. It's just a little drier than I like. I'm going to show you what that looks like though, just so you can kind of for your own experience. So right now, what I have in here is basically dough. I could make biscuits out of this and bake it. I think it would honestly be pretty good if you did that. But it's a little dry. I can touch it. I can feel it with my hand. I want it to be a little moister than that. I want it to be not goopy, like it's gonna run through my fingers, but I want it to almost like think about that it might sort of slowly drip itself off the side. I still want to be able to, touch it, but I don't want it to be quite as dry as it is. So 1 second, I'm gonna turn that on. Yeah, perfect. And it's not really that much different. It's still pretty wet. I can still pick it up with my hands, but it's like too sticky. I don't want to. And that's what we're looking for. It's more back to a paste. It's not really a dry dough. And so all together there, I put, let's see, 4 ounces of milk in there. So I think that ended up being about 1/8 of a cup. So that's perfect. That's what the recipe says. So like I said, you can definitely follow the recipe just straight up. It's not going to hurt anything. What I was using to measure there is this nice little two ounce scoop. I think 1 ounce is probably perfect for dumplings, but it is going to work really nice. So we can just sort of scoop about a half scoop there and plop those right into our broth. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You can use 2 spoons too. I'll show you how we do that. But this is just where it's at. If you just sort of look here, it sort of falls out. It's a really nice shape. I like these a lot. This is an ice cream scoop. Can't go wrong with one of these. 2 ounce is really the one you should use, obviously. The 1 ounce is almost too specialized to really be useful in a kitchen, and you can always just half scoop on a 2 ounce and get the same results almost every time. All right, my broth is getting good here, getting close to boiling. We're going to bring it up to a boil, then we're going to put our blops in there. They call them blops. That's just the little bits of dumpling batter. And then we're going to turn it down to a simmer. We're going to simmer for 15 minutes. And then it's going to be done. And during that 15 minutes, we're just going to hang out. I'm going to do some breathing exercises because I've just been talking a lot. And I definitely need to get more oxygen into my lungs. And then you guys are going to get to see how delicious this looks. It's so good. Oh my God, I can't wait. You can see this is already starting to get close to boiling. So I'm just going to put my stuff away, do a little cleanup. Always clean up in between if you have the time. Makes your life easier later. Nothing better than sitting down for dinner and the cleanup's already done. In this case, it's more like a late lunch, but hydrate. Come on, buddy, let's go. Just gonna get my back burner ready for simmering because my front burner doesn't know anything but power. Awesome. We're just double checking because I have a penchant for forgetting stuff. Flour, baking powder, sugar, chicken's in there, butter's in there, milk's in there, chicken broth and the dice is in there. We are good. My whole recipe followed to the T. Didn't forget a single thing. Helpful when it's nice and easy, All right, beautiful. This is like a couple seconds away from being done. I got myself a chair. This is smart. This is what's called smart cooking. Just put a chair right next to. I I mean, you could chop like this. There's nothing wrong with that. I always feel weird when I'm sitting down and chopping though. I feel like I don't have enough leverage, but that's probably just my own sort of. I just need to get used to it, you know. Oh baby, yeah, there we go. All right, we have bubbles. This is good. Okay, okay. So bubbles are in there. I am not going to bother trying to take out the blade right now, just because it's just going to be more effort than it's worth. It's very sticky in there, so I'm just going to kind of scrape around it. And once I've gotten some of these in the soup, we'll be good to go. So you can fit quite a lot into this. I've got a pretty wide brim. I think this is a 12-inch, or no, this is a 10-inch pot. In a 10-inch pot, I fit 24 dumplings before. I think I'm probably going to get maybe 12 out of this one, maybe 16, depending. Just because I halved it. Um, and we're just going to see what happens. But you don't have to worry about them sticking to each other. They're really not going to. The water's going to be nice and hot. They're going to sort of immediately when they get in there, they're going to sort of the outside's going to cook. That 15 minutes is really just us trying to cook the inside. We want to steam it because it's chicken. We want to make sure it's fully cooked. But even with normal dumplings, you want to make sure they're fully cooked all the way through. Nothing worse than like cutting a dumpling open and having like gooey inside. So here we go. We've got boiling water or boiling broth. I'm just going to go in here and do like my half a scoop, and then I'm just going to plop it in there. You don't really have to pay attention. I like to do kind of like go around like a clock, do my first 12, and then sort of find little holes once the other ones have um, started floating. Oh, excuse me. That's 6. Oh yeah, they're already starting to float, which is great. I think this is 10, which means I need to try and get 2 more out of this. Yeah, I think I got that. So now there's, a lot easier to take that blade out. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. It's just a very sticky dough, a lot of protein in there than the chicken. And it's not super hydrated. We really don't want tons of water in this dough. That just makes it stickier. Great. Scrape my sides down. And it can be easy to forget that there's raw chicken in this dough. So when you're done, make sure you wash your hands. You sometimes it's just like, oh, it's just dough. I'll just rinse them off or whatever. But make sure you use soap and water because there's raw chicken in there. I'm telling that to myself as well, but also just you. It's just really easy to kind of forget. Okay, there's one more. I think I'm gonna get lucky 13. There we go. It's a day of extras, leap day and baker's dozen dumplings. Come on. Okay, just to show you guys, I'm gonna sort of take one of these out just for a second, just to sort of show you what they start to look like. We are gonna make sure we cook these, but this guy has already risen up to a nice little floof like that. That's just from a couple seconds in there, but he needs to cook all the way through. So we're gonna put a lid on. That's going to create pressure, which is going to help steam these. And we're just gonna set that back there. Timer. Heck yeah! And we will have a delicious soup when we are done. Right now would be a good time if you were, coming home from work and just cooking this for your family. Now would be a time where you want to get all your accoutrement ready, get your bowls, get your spoons, dice up some herbs. For me, I really like some parsley on top. I'm just going to put a little bit of dried herb in there once they're done steaming, just to let that sort of add its flavor in there. I've actually got some chives right here. Start with those, and maybe I'll do a little bit of Italian seasoning as well. Yeah, that should be fine. But you can put literally anything you want in there. I really like once you're eating the soup, like I said, I like a little bit of lime juice in there. If you have chili crisp, that's really good in there as well. Or even just dried red pepper flakes. Little Parmesan cheese can be really nice as well as a topper on there. Think about it like kind of like a chicken noodle soup is the vibe. but we're definitely getting into sort of alternate territory here. You know, we took the chicken out of the soup, put it in the dumplings. Um, Another thing you could do as well, if you really like that creamy chicken flavor from something like a like a Cracker Barrel style chicken and dumplings, take a can of cream of chicken soup, and when they're done steaming here, just pop the whole condensed. You know, they have like the condensed one. Just put that in there. Um, I think it's usually like the can plus like a 1 can worth of water. Just like use a little bit less chicken broth, or just use chicken broth and put the chicken soup on top. But plop that in there after and just bring it up to temp. That'll really help thicken your soup, almost because there's a roux in there. There's flour in that chicken soup, so that'll help sort of thicken things up and get you that nice sort of thick mouthfeel. You could also, if you want to, just put like a slurry, like a flour and water or a cornstarch and water slurry in here, and that will help thicken up the stock as well. I don't like to have a thick stock before I simmer because it's a thicker stock. So when you're simmering like that, you're not really stirring, and the bottom can burn a little bit. So if I am going to thicken it, I want to thicken it after I've simmered, steamed, mainly because I don't really trust my stove to do low. But if you have a much better control, you can deal with that even with like a thick broth. And that's a good idea too. If we were doing normal chicken and dumpling soup right now, there's a couple different ways you could do dumplings. You can do this. This is the drop dumpling, which are our classic sort of fluffy pillow dumplings. But there was that point where we were cooking the chicken or making the chicken paste where it really felt like I could touch that and roll it out. Keep the flour out of the recipe, or keep the milk out of the recipe. Take that biscuit dough out and flour your surface and roll it thin. If you don't put the baking powder in there, you'll get what's the other type of biscuit dough, which is the flat dough. And they cut them into little squares, and they cook them very similar. It's more like a pasta than a dumpling, but they're also technically dumplings, and that's like a big sort of to do in the sort of chicken and dumplings world about pillow dumplings or Yankee dumplings, I believe is the way that they like to call them, or classic, quote unquote, classic Southern dumplings, which are more of like a sheet pasta, rolled pasta, which is literally just flour and buttermilk, I think. Very, very simple. You make a nice little sort of dough, you roll it out nice and thin and cut it into squares. And then just slip those squares into the liquid like we just did. Simmer them like we're doing, but it takes a lot less time. You don't need 15 minutes. I think it's only like 8 minutes or so, and you're done. Um, and those are just as tasty. You could definitely do it the exact same way we just did, just instead of using, just don't add that extra milk. Keep the dough a little bit more tacky and dry. Roll it out with some extra flour, and get it nice and thin and cut it into squares. And I think that would hold together just fine. Lots of protein in chicken. So, a lot of times for like a pasta, you need eggs for a binder, but there's nothing stopping you from just using chicken. Um, Talking about classic biscuit, whoops, turned the wrong one off. That's okay. It's still so hot. Breathe while that heats back up again. Um, so yeah, perfect. Classic sort of chicken and dumplings. If I was doing this, I would take the chicken out. So what I found for conversion was about a half a cup of milk is about a half a pound of chicken. Um, Pound of chicken is about 1 cup of milk. That's the original recipe. Is I put a pound of chicken in here. I took a cup of milk out of a classic biscuit and dumplings or dumpling chicken and dumplings recipe. So literally the exact same recipe that you guys are going to get. If you just replace that pound of chicken with a cup of milk, you will get normal dumpling dough that you can make this with, and just put chicken in the soup. You don't have to put the chicken in the dumplings like I'm doing. You can put the chicken in the soup. Um, it's kind of the classic way that it's done, and it's fun to be able to do both of those easily. I did a lot of research on this recipe, and the simplest solution ended up being the one that worked really, really well. Was literally just replacing the liquid with a different liquid. Chicken has a decent amount of water in it. I did a little bit of math, found out that a pound of chicken is about 2 cups worth of chicken. I figured 50% of that is close enough in liquid weight to milk, because milk has a decent amount of protein in it as well. It's not just pure water. So I kind of just wung it, threw it together, it worked perfectly. Did want to add, as you saw, a little bit of extra liquid in there just because there's not quite as much moisture in that chicken. But if I skip that milk, this would still be delicious, no problems whatsoever. The dumplings are just going to be a little softer because I put that milk in there. And by softer, I mean like on your palate. When you chew them, it won't be like chewing a piece of boiled chicken. It'll be like chewing a nice pillow, which is, just a much better and sort of more pleasant experience. So we're getting close here on this timer. And then I'll show you guys what a little bowl looks like. I'm actually going to get a nice bowl out. I got some really nice bowls for Christmas this year from my sister. She got us these beautiful things. There's a pair, one for me, one for Alexandra. I might as well plate some for Alexandra because I have a feeling she's going to want some too. I'll show you what this looks like when it's done. Simmering is looking good. My dumplings are looking super good. Take a little peek. It's actually gone a little hard. Ooh, looks good. And that turkey broth is got a much more intense color than the chicken broth I used before. So you'll see when these dumplings come out, they're almost a little bit orange, and that's from all the browning from the turkey. And I cooked that broth for like 12 hours or something insane. So it's got a lot of flavor in it. It's got bone matter. It's got everything you could possibly want. You get some spoons here, ready to go. Guys, I got a couple minutes. I'm just gonna run to the bathroom real quick. I will be right back, and I'll show you what this looks like. Oh yeah, we're almost there. Perfect. You do some deep breathing with me, all right? You guys want to do a nice little quick meditation real quick? Just like 2 minutes. That's all we got left. Ooh, there we go. That's good. Oxygen's great. I can like feel my lungs stretching.
Welcome to our joint meditation and cooking class with Chris.
I was gonna say this is the first time, but maybe it shouldn't be the last one. Maybe we'll do a little breathing sesh every cooking class. I feel great right now.
Yeah.
Should probably have better posture. Don't tell my yoga instructors. All right. Just infinitely better. Gotta just like do that all the time. One of my favorite books, Jitterbug Perfume, by Tom Robbins, is it's kind of a trip. It's like a journey through time and all sorts of crazy things happen. But um, one of the things that they talk about in that is breathing meditation. They have a very particular way of breathing, um, where you're not supposed to, usually when you breathe, I can make myself breathe in. I can force my diaphragm to bring oxygen into my lungs. And their whole concept is that instead of forcing that action, you're supposed to sort of more just like let the air come into your lungs. It's less of like a conscious effort and more of just sort of like a releasing of your diaphragm. So it's less muscle strain. It's more just you just sort of open your mouth and let the air come in, and then you use your muscles to breathe it out. But it's more of the concept by it is it's more passive, and in doing so, they extend their lives because they sort of bypass this like concept of forcing oxygen into your body, and they sort of absorb it. It's a trippy book. It's Tom Robbins, so it's also slightly problematic sometimes, but a very fun sort of part of a very long journey is this sort of discovering of this breathing practice and sort of non-violent breathing, I guess would be a way to describe it. Ooh, let's go. All right. This boyo is done. I'm going to show you what we got over here. Take that off, nice and beautiful and steamed. I don't even have to temp these. I know that they are perfect. So I'm just gonna get our herbs over here for a little topping. I'm just gonna show you what this looks like, guys. Can't tell. I'm gonna pick you guys up. See those beautiful little dumplings in there, just floating, looking amazing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 13. Perfect. I did count right. So that's what they look like when they're done. Just going to show you how I usually plate this. You do want to kind of give it a little stir. Now that they've cooked, they're pretty solid. They're not going to really go anywhere. You can't hurt them. So what I usually do, I'm just going to get you closer here, is I'm going to go to the bottom of the pot first, and I'm just going to try and stir it up, and I'm going to try and get as much of the chunks as possible in my first scoop. And I did get a little dumpling there as well. And now what I can do is I can sort of skim the top and get a couple more dumplings. I'll usually do like 3 dumplings for a first go for myself. And then, you can always come back for more. It's more chunky than this one. Beautiful. So as you can see, nice steamy bowls there. Just gonna hit these with a little bit of herbs on top. If I had fresh herbs, this would be better, but dried herbs are gonna be perfectly fine. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's just not gonna look quite as nice. But they're gonna add a really nice flavor to this soup, particularly. And chives, of course, on everything. This was a fancy restaurant. I'd be putting chives on top of this, except they'd be nice and green. And that's it, guys. That's our delicious chicken noodle soup, or not chicken noodle soup, chicken dumpling soup. Not chicken and dumpling soup, chicken dumpling. I'm just gonna crack one of these guys open real quick. This is one of my favorite ones right here. Look at him, he's beautiful. Got a nice little split there. And I'm just gonna cut him open with my spoon. Whoop, if I can get him. There we go. Just to show you what that cross section looks like, what the inside looks like. Oh, hot. So hot. Ah. Trying to show you before it got wet. Here we go. Perfect. So you can see inside there, it's kind of it's like a little bit of bread. Hopefully you can see that well. The inside's kind of dry. The water hasn't penetrated all the way through. We want that. We want it to be soft and fluffy in there. We don't want it to be overcooked. We don't want it to be sort of mushy. We want it to be a dumpling. We want it to be its own self-fulfilled dumpling. And so that it's kind of dry in the center. It's fully cooked though. This almost looks like a piece of bread. I'm sure it tastes absolutely delicious.
Oh, you're gonna burn yourself.
Oh my God, it's so good. Oh, the turkey really brought it to another level. That broth is so good. Anyways, guys, that's it. that's us. We did a little Chef Look Cooks. We did it in an hour. Beautiful. It's always a nice little goal of mine is actually do it in an hour. So um, thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for continuing to support Chef Look Cooks and me even in my time of sickness. This is about to cure me so hard that already just like brought my spirits up. And I got one of my breathing meditations done already, although it was, a little shorty, but I'll take it. I
Thank
already
you, Cheech.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Sarah, hi, Sarah.
Love you.
better
Hi,
soon.
baby.
Feel better soon.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to see you guys again in person soon enough. I'm
Absolutely.
sure I'll be wearing a mask for a bit just because I'm paranoid. But thank you all for showing up, and do make sure to tell your friends. Check out our Edgartown Library YouTube. This will get posted up there as soon as I can get the recording. And all the old programs are up there as well. And we'll see you next month for a little redo of not a redo per se, but it's going to be a sort of very similar process to one of the programs we did back when we were doing batter, but the batter is going to be something out of this world. And I'll tell you right now, Chicken is going to make a redo, but if you're not going to recognize it one bit, and it's going to be real good. I'm very excited. So actually, I think tomorrow, literally, the newsletter is coming out, so you don't even have to wait that long. Everybody, we'll see you all later.
Feel better.